on the question of prosecution in the state of Texas versus Gonzales, to examine whether the prosecution of this officer may properly proceed is to weigh a matter of grave public import, yet one that must be resolved within the cold confines of the law. The facts as alleged present a harrowing tableau: an officer, sworn to a public trust, present at the scene of a great atrocity while it was yet in progress, who is said to have withheld that very action which constitutes the core of his duty. The heart cries out for a reckoning. But the court's task is not to assuage anguish, however profound. It is to determine whether the state's allegations, if proven, describe a breach of the criminal law. January 4, 2026. Welcome to the Big Dog Daily Podcast. The world has moved on, wrapped in the brittle hope of a new year. But some truths refuse to stay in the past. They demand to be remembered in the stark, unforgiving light of now. Today, we return to Uvalde. Not to reopen old wounds, but to confront a painful and enduring truth that lived in the hallway of a school: the devastating cost of cowardice when those sworn to protect hesitated. We examine the legacy of that inaction and the questions that still scream into the silence. A brief word on today's support. This episode is brought to you by Timothy Renier Insurance. As an independent agent now offering auto insurance in Arizona, Timothy leverages his expertise to secure tailored coverage that fits your life and budget. For a quote that saves you both money and time, call 602-341-5290. License number 6734192. The prosecution's contention rests upon a narrow but critical premise: that at the precise moment of his arrival, the officer possessed both knowledge of the assailant's presence and a fleeting opportunity to interpose himself. They argue that his specialized training forged a specific duty, not of infallibility, nor of guaranteed success, but of immediate engagement. To have stood by, they suggest, was not a mere error in judgment, but a species of abandonment. In the law, as in life, there are times when duty is absolute, when the call for action admits of no prudent delay. If their account is credited by the jury, it would depict a failure not of capacity, but of will, a choice to become a spectator to a horror he was sworn to confront. The defense, with equal vigor, paints a different scene: one of confusion, of perceived rifle fire, of concurrent acts of evacuation, of a man making a calculus under conditions which no judicial retrospect can truly recreate. They posit that his conduct, viewed from within the vortex of that chaos, fell within the broad spectrum of a reasonable officer's permissible response. It is a powerful argument, for the law does not demand prescience, nor does it punish hesitation that stems from an honest assessment of mortal peril. To criminalize such hesitation would be to demand a standard of courage so inhuman as to make the office itself unsustainable. Yet we must distinguish between the error of a distracted mind and the abdication of a defined office. The question for the jury will not be whether he acted ideally or even wisely, but whether he failed to act at all when the law demanded action. The peculiar duty of a school officer in such an extremity is not analogous to that of an ordinary citizen, or even of an officer arriving at a street brawl. It is a duty distilled to its most essential form: the protection of the helpless from imminent lethal violence. A failure in that duty, if proven to be a conscious omission rather than a baffled paralysis, touches upon the heart of the public trust. Therefore, I find that the prosecution must be permitted to lay its case before the jury. The charges are not frivolous. They allege a dereliction so fundamental that, should the evidence support it, it would strike at the compact between the state and those vested with its authority. To decline prosecution on the grounds of professional deference would be to insulate a public functionary from the very law he is sworn to uphold. The trial will be a severe ordeal, a dissection of a day of national grief. But the process itself, the meticulous presentation of evidence, the rigorous testing of recollection, the sober judgment of 12 citizens, is the only vessel we have to navigate between the Scylla of vindictive scapegoating and the Charybdis of impunity. The motion to dismiss is denied. Let the trial proceed. And if the findings of this bench resonate within you with the force of settled law, if you recognize in this judgment a correct application of principle, then let that recognition be recorded. Let it be entered into the docket by hitting the like button. Furthermore, if you deem such jurisprudential reasoning vital to the defense of our foundational liberties, if you believe this line of precedent must be preserved and its arguments amplified for the common good, then you are hereby ordered to subscribe. Now, for the informed citizenry is not a passive body, it is the final arbiter. And you distinguish a sound ruling from a flawed one, particularly when it is grounded in statute and delivered with authority. This concludes the present session. Court is adjourned. Go forth and uphold the rule of law.